After a mid-race pit stop, a screwdriver fell from the back of a race car due to vibrations and dropped to the ground, causing a tire blowout on another race car, which instantly overturned on the track with one tire, crashing into the audience area. All the spectators were terrified and began to flee as the rolling car was struck by a vehicle from behind, sending it crashing into the audience. Two people, unable to escape in time, were crushed, causing panic among the crowd as they started to flee wildly, blocking the nearest exit. Those left behind were split in two by the debris from the racing car. The scene was in complete chaos. After a woman was knocked down, people stepped over her body as she got up to look. The man, overwhelmed by grief from his wife's death, was about to run away when he suddenly fell. A chain collision occurred at the racetrack, with a flying car crashing into a load-bearing column, causing concrete blocks from the ceiling to collapse. A couple holding hands was crushed beneath the debris. The milliliter outlet was blocked by stones. Nick called for his girlfriend Laurie to hurry over, but the racing car behind them exploded. In an instant, Nick found himself back a few minutes earlier, realizing he had encountered a terrible future. He urged everyone to leave quickly, or they would all die here in a car accident, but none of Nick's friends believed him. Hunter advised him to calm down, and Nick accidentally fell onto the person in front of him, making that person furious and wanting to hit Nick. After continuing to provoke the other person, Nick grabbed Laurie and turned to run, spilling bubble tea on the stranger Daniel, who angrily chased after them, telling his girlfriend to wait for him right there. Meanwhile, a screwdriver was stuck in the back of a racing car, entering the track with Nick and Laurie. Two men, who were friends, and in a heated argument, escaped, and he quickly explained to everyone that an accident was about to happen. Hunter still didn't believe him, and in the next moment, a crash occurred at the racetrack. People began to flee outside, and Daniel realized that his wife was still inside. He wanted to go in to find her, but the security personnel wouldn't let him. A woman said they were all crazy, and in the end, he couldn't escape the flying wheel. The accident resulted in 52 deaths, with a few lucky ones escaping unharmed. Janet asked Nick how he knew about it, and Nick replied that he saw the future. He and his girlfriend Laurie attended the memorial service, where a couple came over to thank Nick. Because of Nick's warning, the couple and their two sons survived. The woman asked Nick how he knew, but Laurie did not want to elaborate. The security personnel also came to thank Nick. At that moment, Daniel approached, blaming the security for his wife's death, and left with a murderous intent. After Nick went to sleep, he had a dream about a door, a cross, horseshoes, chains, and metal hooks. After waking up, his girlfriend comforted him, but a sinister wind blew through, knocking a photo down, with a falling nail landing on Laurie's photo's eye. Something significant was about to happen in the bathroom. While outside, the trailer provided Daniel with the courage to drink as he glared menacingly at the security guard's house, seeking revenge. He then picked up a cross and a large shovel, ignoring the trailer's hook that had fallen. Arriving in the security guard's yard, he began to dig, and as a sinister wind blew again, a horseshoe from the trailer fell onto the radio, producing a sound. He was worried that the noise would alert the security personnel. A beer was hanging from the gear shift in the trailer, causing the trailer to start moving forward, automatically locking the car doors. A barrel of fuel spilled onto the ground, and Daniel hurried to get into the car, but couldn't open the door. He then rushed to the back of the vehicle, desperately trying to stop the trailer from moving. Just as he stopped, a metal hook caught his ankle, and he was dragged along by the trailer, with fuel continuously spilling out. The metal chain created sparks through friction, igniting flames that spread to Daniel's body. The security personnel came out to see what was happening. Soon, Laurie and Nick learned about the incident and discovered that the deceased was Daniel, a survivor of the racing accident. Nick also realized that the scene from his dream appeared at the accident site. At that moment, he saw the vision again, noticing a pair of scissors, a pedal, an electric clamp, and a person encountering an accident. When he came to his senses, he felt that this must be a premonition of someone's death in the future, especially since after dreaming of those things last night, Daniel had mysteriously died. It seemed to be some kind of clue, unaware that death was quietly approaching as two little boys competed in throwing stones. A stone was thrown onto the grass, and another nearly hit a groundskeeper, causing him to shout angrily for the two little kids to leave. Their mother helplessly sent her two sons away, and then went to a hair salon to get her hair done, with only 10 minutes left until closing time. The salon owner was unwilling to serve her, but after persistent pleas from Shaman Mountain, she finally agreed to let her get her hair done there. The female hairstylist used a foot pedal to raise the chair, but the chair malfunctioned. He then raised the chair higher, unaware that the high-pressure gas inside was under the control of death. Meanwhile, Shaman Mountain was enjoying himself, getting his hair done, while also having his feet pampered. Would an accident happen in the next moment? Not yet, as Shaman Mountain felt thirsty and wanted to drink water. At that moment, the boss lady put down the mop to pour water, accidentally knocking over a hair treatment product, which then fell onto a lotion and sprayed onto the floor. The ceiling fan was swaying dangerously, about to fall. When the boss lady returned with the water, she didn't step on the lotion, but the water Shaman Mountain was drinking dripped down onto the electric hair straightener. She placed the cup between the hair straightener and the spray can to mist. Jumping like an electric clipper sliding away, the two of them noticed nothing. Everything seemed to be building up. Just as Shaman Mountain was getting a haircut, the ceiling fan began to detach, and a spray can also slid into the middle of the electric clipper, causing the heated seat to malfunction again. Fortunately, nothing happened. The two sons returned home looking for their mother after eating spicy snacks. One boy slipped on some lotion, and Shaman Mountain quickly turned around to check on his son, diverting his attention from the spray can. Just then, the electric fan did not hit Shamansky Mountain either. He finished his hair and was ready to leave, reminding his son to hurry and take the lawnmower from the grass outside to roll that stone in. A few people learned that another survivor from the accident had died. Everything seemed too coincidental. Lori and Nick found online that someone had once foreseen the future and saved themselves. Later, they discovered that according to the order of deaths in the accident, one by one, all of them would die, meaning that the four of them would also perish. They also found out that the death order could be interrupted. If they could stop the death order, they could survive, but they had to completely stop the death order. Otherwise, it would just change the order. Moreover, the person who stops the death order would die first. Janet felt this. In a fit of anger, he turned and left. Hunter, not believing the mockery directed at the two, also turned and left. At that moment, Nick saw a vision, a flamethrower, a bundle of steel cables, and a gas canister. Nick thought of a way to prevent the tragedy, and went to the racetrack at night, as this was the only way to remember the order of death. The first to die was the mechanic's girlfriend. The second was the tow truck driver Daniel and his girlfriend. The third was Shamansky Mountain, and Nick couldn't remember the rest. Fortunately, security guard George appeared, and took the two to the monitoring room, where they learned through the video playback that the fourth person was the mechanic and the fifth was Hunter. The sixth on the list is George, followed by Lori, and finally Nick. In reality, Shamansky Mountain has already died, and if the conclusion is correct, the next one is the mechanic. They arrive at his workplace using the address on the mechanic's uniform, intending to save him there. Nick sees the gas canister and the flamethrower from the premonition, and the mechanic appears. The three quickly inform him that 3 survivors from the racetrack incident have already died, and the mechanic could be the next victim. Although he is indirectly saved by Nick, he still does not believe in the death order Nick speaks of, and refuses to let them in. The engine operated and vibrated, causing the iron can above to fall, spilling its contents onto the equipment and resulting in a short circuit. The mechanic said he had worked here for many years, and if he were going to die, he would have died long ago. The equipment malfunctioned again, causing a car to slide down. The car came to a stop, leaving him drenched in cold sweat, nearly getting hit. Grateful to have survived the ordeal, he believed that there would surely be good fortune to follow. The three of them realize that the death order is real, and the next in line are Hunter and Janet, but they both die almost simultaneously, leaving the question of who will die first. Faced with this dilemma, they split into 2 groups. Nick goes to save Hunter, while Lori and George go to rescue Janet. At the same time, Hunter is having fun in the swimming pool, and Janet has just gotten into her car, only to find a lump of pigeon droppings on the windshield that won't wash off. And as she drives, the sunroof suddenly opens, and no matter how hard she tries, she can't close it. Angry, he looked up to the sky and exploded with rage. Meanwhile, Nick was trying to call Hunter, but he didn't answer. He accidentally noticed a water alert, and then a vision appeared, showing a scene of a coin pressure gauge at the car wash with leaking pipes, and water being dyed red. Nick quickly called Hunter to warn him not to touch the water. At a critical moment, someone sprayed water on Hunter, and when he turned around, he saw it was a child. Furious, Hunter instantly snatched the water gun from him. Realizing the call had already disconnected, he carelessly threw the water gun aside, unaware that it had fallen down. The pool drainage controller was activated, and the pressure gauge continued to rise as the drainage system began to suck water out. The plastic cover of the pool's drain was instantly pulled in. Janet arrived at the car wash to get her car cleaned, and while she was checking out at the automatic payment machine, Lori managed to get through on the phone. However, Janet Janet only said she was at the car wash before hanging up, leaving the two of them to blindly search for the car wash. As Janet started washing her car, the sign indicated that the car should stay centered, the antenna should be retracted, the brakes should not be pressed, and hands should be off the steering wheel. Yet, as the car entered the washing area, the antenna was still up, getting caught in the car wash brushes. The control system of the device experiences a short-circuit failure. Laurie calls to tell Janet not to touch the water, but the noise is too loud, and the signal is poor, so Janet can't hear what is being said at all. Suddenly, the conveyor belt stops running, and Janet gets stuck in the middle. The car door won't open, her phone has no signal, and the pipes above start to leak. Janet floors the gas pedal, but unfortunately, there are pulleys underneath, and the car remains motionless. She opens the sunroof, but it only opens halfway before it malfunctions. The pipe bursts, and a large amount of water floods into the car. Janet finally panics. She desperately tries to pull open the sunroof, but can't move it at all. If this continues, she will drown in the car. Janet struggles desperately. Laurie called for help, but there was no one nearby. While searching for Janet at the car wash, she tried to call her, but it seemed impossible to get through. Hunter, on the other hand, was sipping champagne and playing with a lucky coin in his hand. Nearby, someone was playing golf, and a ball flew over, hitting Hunter and causing his lucky coin to fall into the pool, where it was sucked into the drain. Believing that the lucky coin could bring him good fortune, he decisively jumped into the pool and swam to the drain to look for the coin. But in an instant, his body was caught by the suction. Now it's getting intense. A wave of sour and tingling sensations hits. Under the high-density pressure of the water, Hunter wants to get out but is firmly sucked in, unable to escape the drain. And it's not just drowning that he has to worry about. At the same time, Janet is trapped in a water-filled car, struggling to lift his head to breathe. He unleashes all his strength to stick his head out, but the equipment malfunctions again, causing the conveyor belt to start moving forward, leaving his head stuck outside while the car fills with water, making it impossible for his head to return inside. As Janet passes through the sidecar wash brush, he looks up and sees a horizontal car wash brush coming, realizing that this time, he's getting a wash. Laurie arrives just in time at Janet's car wash during this critical moment. Laurie's car blocked Janet's vehicle from moving forward, and after pushing Janet to a relatively safe position, George took control of the car. Laurie hurriedly got out to save her. She climbed onto Janet's car and used her legs to kick open the sunroof, intending to pull her out. The pipes above were swaying dangerously, almost crashing down on the two of them. At that moment, Hunter was trapped in the water, blocking the drain. The people in the pool did not notice him. Suddenly, the pressure gauge needle began to rise continuously, and Hunter felt a sharp pain in his hip, unlike anything he had ever experienced. Nick also arrived at the pool searching for Hunter, while the pressure gauge had already maxed out, and the equipment started to smoke, leading to a tragedy. Since Janet survived, George suspects that she has disrupted the death list, and perhaps he will be next after her. She claims she will face everything calmly, and is not afraid of the fact that George's drunk driving caused his family's tragic death. She feels very guilty, and believes her family is waiting for her. George returns home, waiting for disaster to strike, claiming he is not afraid, but it is just words, as his hands tremble uncontrollably. If George dies, then it will be Laurie's turn. At that moment, a gust of wind knocks over a coffee cup, and the part that wasn't soaked seems to indicate that they were saved through their actions. Nick doubts that anyone will die again. George goes to find George at his home and discovers a horrifying scene. George has hanged himself, but death does not allow him to die, as the rope suddenly snaps. George has tried many methods and finds that he cannot die. Laurie believes that Janet must have compromised the death list, and that everyone is safe now. The three of them drink to celebrate their new lease on life, each living happily. Nick and Laurie plan to vacation in Paris, and while Nick is packing, a book falls to the ground, revealing a page with a hand in the water pleading for help. Nick experiences another vision, hearing the sound of a siren, and sees tiles in the bathroom that say he is here. A 3D cobra is wrapped around a needle with tomato juice. At this moment, news breaks that Jonathan has been rescued from the ruins, and Nick suddenly realizes that someone has fallen. Nick rushes to find George to inform him that the death order has been mistaken, and Jonathan is the next on the death list. Jonathan is receiving treatment in the hospital, and in the upstairs nursing ward, a nurse is about to help an elderly man take a bath, while the doctor asks her to measure the blood pressure of other patients. Reluctantly, the nurse has to follow the arrangement and leaves, leaving the elderly man waiting alone. He discovers that the faucet has not been turned off and calls for help, but there is a broadcast outside, making it hard to hear anything. Soon, water overflows from the bathtub, gushing out in large amounts. Downstairs, Jonathan feels water dripping from the ceiling. When he looks up, he realizes that the ceiling is leaking and the situation is dire. Jonathan is seriously injured and unable to move his body. He tries to use the call button to summon a nurse, but a surge of electricity causes him to knock the call button away. Then, a piece of the ceiling collapses, causing a short circuit in the equipment. After Nick and George regroup, they head to the hospital to rescue Jonathan, while the old man can only watch helplessly, as the entire room is nearly filled with water, indicating that the door is very well sealed. Nick tells George that Jonathan is the next one, which prevents Jonathan from dying. So if Jonathan dies, George is becoming the next victim. His mindset is a bit unstable. Jonathan has already climbed down from his sickbed, and a wire has fallen down. The two find Jonathan, but the bathtub upstairs starts to fall. In an instant, Jonathan is crushed by the bathtub, leaving the old man stunned. Who will be next? Janet and Laurie are shopping at the mall, when a drone nearly hits Janet, a prank by an old man nearby. He also uses a remote-controlled car to crash into Laurie's foot, foreshadowing a tragedy related to feet. But the two do not notice that Nick is looking for Laurie. George suddenly disappears, and Nick quickly runs over to see the snake needle in the illusion. The two people shopping remain unaware that someone will become the next victim. After Laurie just showed off her new shoes, they go to take the elevator. Laurie's shoelace gets caught in the elevator, and she suddenly realizes it, so she hurriedly tries to get it out. But no matter what she does, it won't come loose. As the elevator reaches the top, her foot is still unable to break free. Time. It's twisting. My age. Fortunately, the shoelace was snapped, and it turned out to be a false alarm. It seems Laurie is next. A gust of wind blew away the blackout cloth, causing light to refract through the glasses, concentrating at a point, and generating high temperatures, threatening to ignite the sawdust. The two bought movie tickets to watch a film, while Nick was on his way to find them. He noticed a bus behind him with a reminder of lost love, and saw an illusion of gears turning, and a fiery explosion. It must be his girlfriend. He hurried to find the construction site where the blackout cloth had fallen on the switch and turned on the fan. The car was blown by the wind and began to move, its wheels crushing a power line, causing a bottle of flammable liquid to spill onto the ground, connecting sawdust and countless barrels of combustible materials. Right behind them was the cinema. Many audience members were watching the movie, including Laurie and Janet. Laurie noticed that the popcorn had the words, "Death is coming," written on it. Laurie had a foreboding feeling and shared the omen with Janet. However, Janet started to sing a different tune, telling Laurie that everything was over and she wanted to enjoy the movie in peace. Next door, the theater's curtain was ignited, and flames began to burn along the liquid, next to the numerous flammable materials. Nick had already arrived at the movie ticket counter. He had no idea what movie the two were watching, and could only go from one screening room to another, searching for the cart where the flammable materials had started to explode in small areas, flames heading towards the unified direction. Nick found the screening room of the movie, The Love That Passed, and he finally found Laurie. So Laurie rushed out to tell Laurie that Nick had killed George, and urged Janet to leave quickly, but she soon forgot the pain after healing. Doing this? Okay, you're both nuts. Everything that needed to be said was said, and the two had no choice but to escape from here. Don't you see? This is where I was supposed to be in the first place, not that stupid race. I was meant to see this movie. My boys. After the explosion, Laurie came to see Janet, and it seemed she wasn't completely dead yet. Wearing sunglasses, she exuded a queenly aura. Nick continued to escape with his girlfriend, but flammable materials kept igniting one after another. After the two managed to escape, the staff were instantly blown away, and the continuous explosions put everyone in the mall in danger. As Nick and Laurie exited the elevator, another explosion struck, causing many people to be thrown by the shockwave. The two were trapped in the middle of the elevator, and Nick quickly grabbed Laurie's hand. Below is the situation of the escalator's transmission gears in operation. Extremely urgent. He urged his girlfriend to climb up quickly, but the continuous downward vibrations of the escalator caused Janet to keep falling, and disaster struck. In an instant, Nick was back before entering the mall, desperately running towards the cinema inside. This time, Nick was determined to save everything. He didn't go to rescue his girlfriend first, but instead headed to the construction room next to the screening hall. He discovered that the flames would soon reach a large amount of combustible materials. Nick pulled the fire suppression system, but the wires were damaged, so he used a fire extinguisher to put out the fire. He had just extinguished half of it when the mist in the extinguisher ran out, causing him to angrily throw it aside, where it hit the corner of a table, causing a nail gun on top to fall. Nick planned to stomp out a spark that flew out, which landed on another pile of combustible materials. As the car just extinguished another pile of sawdust, it caught fire, and the nail gun fell to the ground, firing wildly. Nick could only dodge, but his arm was hit, and a barrel of flammable material was punctured, pinning him to the wall, as the liquid began to leak out. At that moment, Janet was arguing with Laurie, and if this continued, even Nick would be blown up. He wanted to stop the liquid from flowing out into the burning ink, but unexpectedly, the liquid curved around his feet. As the liquid was about to touch the flames, Nick glanced at the sprinkler head, and desperately reached for a wooden stick. Using the burning stick, he approached the sprinkler head, intending to trigger the automatic sprinkler system to explode. In just a few seconds, the liquid made contact with the flames, and ignited, with the fire instantly spreading to the flammable liquid barrels. At a critical moment, Nick finally activated the sprinkler system, preventing a fire disaster. The girlfriend in the cinema, and Janet did not perish as a result. 2 weeks later, Nick came to remind the workers to tighten the scaffolding screws, as the consequences could be severe. The three of them went to the ice cream shop to catch up, when a beggar approached and praised Nick for stopping the mall fire and saving many people. While they were happily chatting, Nick accidentally saw a racing event on the television, featuring the deceased love, and noticed the words, "Death is here," written on the table. This was bad. He told the two that nothing had changed, and everything was predetermined. Janet fell into confusion as the scaffolding outside collapsed onto the road, and a truck was driving by.